brave. I just haven't woken up yet.
Ah.
Mine starts with a title.
Oh, wow.
So a title will come to me, and for example, I was at a bar one time. No one ever goes there. And I was with a friend, and there was someone at the bar who had on a really funky leather jacket. And I was just looking at it because it was really cool, but it was not. It had been cool, but now it wasn't
Out of style.
cool.
Oh, I remember you.
Do you?
Okay.
And I mean, I was joking with my friend that it looked like, you know, kind of a dead guy's jacket. And then in my mind, dead dude's jacket. And so my whole romantic comedy became, I was just sharing with Andy, you know, the letter in Casablanca. My jacket became that. Through line, the thread.
Thread of those. Okay.
Kind of like Dorothy's ruby slippers. You know,
Nice.
it's just that very, it's there, it's a constant, but it's not. And the last scene is the love is comes to life when that jacket is given as a gift to the other person.
Very nice.
And yeah, it was fun, and it was fun writing it, but my point being is that to me, a title will come, and then everything else seems to go to that. And it's very
Interesting.
helpful to me.
You guys hear that? Can you hear that? Where she gets the title download first, and then almost builds around that title. Very nice. Can we get one more person to share? Anyone else? Yes.
So I just kind of circle around it. I get images and I get dialogue, or I'll see a scene. And as I was sharing with Harley, that it's like a jigsaw puzzle. I just kind of circle around the jigsaw puzzle, putting it together. And then I also do artwork, or I'll go for a swim, or go for a walk, and that just sort of helps me stay in the story, live in the story till it comes.
And when do you know that it's time to put that on paper?
Put it on paper?
Yeah.
Well, I'm always putting it on paper,
Oh, okay. All
and I'm
right.
always rewriting. So it's always, whatever's coming to me is on paper, and then it's rewritten,
Oh.
even up until the time it's staged.
Did everyone hear that? It's always rewritten and rewritten and rewritten till the time it's staged. P.T. Anderson talks about writing is obviously rewriting, but he uses the metaphor if it's like ironing. You don't just get a wrinkle out by one pass or even two. It's rewriting to get it right, to get it quality. It's rewriting until that thing looks so good, right? So really, writing is rewriting, and that's a process that we can all relate to. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself and your journey. A little bit about my background. I come from a cross-cultural family. My mother is a Latina woman from El Salvador. My dad is from Oklahoma with the twang. So basically, I grew up on burritos and hee-haw. I also learned to do several cross-cultural activities. I could lambada to Garth Brooks, which
Wow.
makes me, thank you, very cross-cultural. But yes, there were many differences growing up in a cross-cultural family, language, traditions, food. But there was something that was beautifully similar, and that was the language of story. I watched Forrest run, and my relatives in Central America watched L. Forrest run.
Oh, wow.
I read Romeo and Juliet. My Latin relatives read Romeo and Julieta. I got goosebumps watching Braveheart, and my Latin relatives also got goosebumps watching Brave Corazon. The point is that the thing that really drew us together was the beauty of a good story. And just like in this room, there are many differences, obviously, from probably political differences to hobbies to taste in music, but probably the one thing we have in common is a love for a good story. because stories have a way not only to unite us, but they have this way to make their way from the intellect down to our heart, our soul, where logic and dogma and facts and data can stay lodged up here. Stories have their way of making an indelible impression right here. Transformational art is what some peak performers call it. When you get off that roller coaster ride, you're not like, ah, that was a ride. You're actually contemplating that ride and the experience. Amusing is what they often call it. It's entertaining, but it's also educating and empowering. To amuse is to be entertained, but there's also in that word to muse, to process. So those who are focused on experiencing just a ride are not really transformational artists. They're just almost a one-trick pony. It's entertainment. Those of you who are there to give people an experience beyond just entertainment, but some sort of empowerment, you cause them to amuse and think long after they get off your ride, your short story, your feature film, or your stage play. Right? It's a beautiful language that we're all a part of. There is an author that I read, and her name is Jean Rye. She's a poet, and she wrote this concept called feeding the lake. And her philosophy is that humanity is like a lake, and we artists, storytellers, are the lake feeders. And there are some artists that are like a Spielberg or a Tolstoy that are feeding gallons and gallons of humanity in the lake, right? They reach the masses. There are others, they are just feeding a little eye drop. But the point is, it's not how many people you reach, but that you are actually feeding the lake with something amusing, something nourishing. So we're here as artists to feed the lake. And like I said at the beginning, we want to reach people to nourish them with something good, right? Does everyone here share that same passion, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no one wants to do shoddy work. So I want to share an experience of how to move your work from an area that may not be as efficient as you want or as effective as you want, and really go to another level. And here's the principle. When, actually Janie, we were talking about this. She said, tell me about this a film you wrote. A few years ago, I wrote a feature film with a writing partner of mine called Eagles in the Chicken Coop. It ended up getting picked up, made. It was a wonderful experience. We had a talented cast. Kathleen Quinlan, who played opposite Tom Hanks, was in our film. An amazing actress. We had a crew that gave 110%. The movie played film festivals. It ended up winning some awards here in the United States and also internationally. We won Best Screenwriters for the Milan International Festival at that time. The movie went on to go to Amazon and play there. But, and this is a big but, when it hit the lake, so to speak, we got mixed reviews. Now, in all fairness, some of the reviews were just trolls that were going to be negative because that's who they are, and they got nothing better to do. Some, it just wasn't their taste. You know, if you had a affinity towards classical music and someone hands you hip-hop, probably not going to be your cup of tea. So that happened as well. But there was a few legitimate comments that were focusing on the craft of the writing. Plot, character, theme, etc. And I hadn't heard that feedback before in my little bubble. Wait, we have flaws in our script? It kind of stung a little bit. Carl Jung, we were talking about Carl Jung, has a wonderful expression. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. The doorway to becoming aware is you got to walk through pain. C.S. Lewis has a wonderful quote that oftentimes God whispers to us in our pleasure, but uses a megaphone in our pain. So as I was online looking at these legitimate comments, I was getting a megaphone, a favor really, to wake up and take my craft to the next level. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Does you understand? So there was this moment where I'm feeling this pain, where I reached out to a friend that I was doing a project for, and I said, "Can I meet with your husband?" He was, to me, a prolific writer and had a lot of wisdom and insight, far more than I did. I asked him to watch the film and to give me his honest feedback. He did. We sat down over a meal, and in that hour, this man, very kind, but very authentic and real, loving but truthful. And he told me the things that worked and that he liked, and the things that had flaws in it that I could have made more effective. And when he pointed it out, all of a sudden the light goes on. I'm like, why didn't I see that? What? I didn't. Yes. Why didn't I see that? He said, because you never asked me. But yes.
Did you and your partner direct it as well?
He directed it.
Was the direction true to the script?
Direction, yes. You know, there's an expression. Have you heard the expression cactus rolling? Guy goes out into a cactus garden in Arizona. He's lightly dressed, Bermuda shorts, tank top, just walking around this beautiful, colorful cactus garden in a tour, and all of a sudden he gets himself out of line and hurls himself on the cacti and starts rolling around, and he gets up and he's like a porcupine. Now he's dribbling blood, and people are like, oh, they're covering their kids' eyes and going, don't look, crazy man. So they discreetly escort him to the nurse's shack. They clean him off. The nurse starts talking to him and realizes he's totally normal. So she asks the obvious question, why in the world would you jump on a bunch of sharp cacti needle? And he said, because it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. We've all done our share of cactus rolling. You get it? Seemed like the right choice to make at the time with the insight I had. Seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So I want you to know, again, that I took an outside source to help me become aware. And we've all done our share of cactus rolling, and I want you to know this is not about judgment, it's just about observation so you can make improvements. So anyways, I talked to this guy, and he talked about specific things I could improve. And it's like that aha moment where you remember the story, maybe you guys have heard a variation of it, where this master marksman in the Middle Ages is teaching his young disciples to hit the bullseye of excellence. And one of the disciples is like, Master, how do I do that and become excellent like you? And the master said, awareness. So the little disciple's itching his chin and goes, can you elaborate a little bit more? Certainly. Awareness, awareness, awareness. That's really what it was about at that moment. And in that cafeteria, I'm standing next to a guy sitting next to a guy that I really admired, and he just put on the light bulb of awareness. So what I want you guys to know is that this is a key to you going to the next level. Awareness and truth and insight is like an intersection. I stand at a corner. You stand at a corner, a corner, a corner, a corner, a corner. I only see a view. I have a perspective, a corner. You have a corner, a perspective. Nobody has the corner of truth when it comes to writing. We have a corner. But together, we can have a clearer view of the intersection. Together, we can become more efficient and effective. You cannot grow and become aware alone. It doesn't happen. Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, he's got an intersection of coaches speaking into his life. Bill Gates, one of the best when it comes to business, talks about one of his success formulas is an intersection of feedback. Bill Gates, right? Michael Phelps, one of the most decorated Olympians, after he won gold medals, goes to compete again. He's already a gold medalist, and guess what he gets? An intersection of what? Coaches and feedback to take his work to the next level. So the principle here is you will never grow alone. You cannot grow alone. No peak performer does, and no peak actor does, writer does, director does. There is an intersection that is speaking into their lives. You guys know the law of exposure, right? What we expose ourselves to expands. They've done studies on this where they've taken actually flowers and they put them in like speakers, next to speakers. And they turned on, exposed them to this rancid music that was grating to the flowers, and really, I won't repeat the lyrics, but extremely negative. Well, the flowers began to be exposed and wilt and almost turn the other direction. They took another bushel of flowers and put beautiful, soothing, uplifting music. And guess what the flowers did when they were exposed to that? They began to blossom and grow. Think about how much more sensitive we are as living organisms than flowers. So when we expose ourselves to the beauty of insight and feedback, we can grow and blossom. You understand? It's a simple principle. In fact, the second law of thermodynamics is the law that talks about entropy and chaos. Things left alone will do what naturally? They wither and die. If I took the flowers and I'm like, all right, I'm going to lay them on the floor, they're not going to suddenly grow and blossom into this beautiful rose garden. They're going to wither away and die unless the law is interrupted. The law only can happen in a closed system. But the moment that system becomes open and receives a source of life or energy higher than that, for example, I take the flowers, I put them in soil, and I give it water, all of a sudden what happens? It grows. You cannot be an isolated writer. You'll wither. Or at best, you'll be mediocre. You've got to have the nourishment of outside sources. So, what I want you guys to understand is that, do you see this right here? This is a frog. Yeah, it's Kermit. Now, I got Kermit the frog because I read a book by Brian Tracy, and it was called Eat That Frog. And the premise was, do those things that are most important first. Make the main thing the main thing. I'm like, oh, this is a great reminder. Well, I'm walking in Ojai with my girlfriend. We're walking down the street, and this 10-year-old boy, he's like, Supreme! And I look, and he's pointing at me. And he's like, yeah! And then he points to himself, Supreme! And I had no idea what he was talking about. And so he asked the obvious, do you know what Supreme means? So I pull out my phone. I'm like, yes. It comes from the Latin word to rise. The origin is to rise above. In other words, supreme is to be at the top of your game. Right, this is nice. It's to be your utmost, the most effective you can be. It's not being flawless. It's not being perfect. It's being the most effective. He's like, well, it's actually your shirt. I'm like, oh, Supreme. The reason I wore this shirt today was not because of Kermit or Brian Tracy or that 10-year-old boy. What I want you guys to know is in order for your work to be supreme, you've got to have an intersection team. Remember this, as cheesy as this is, in order for your work to be supreme, you've got to have an intersection team. It's that simple. That is the big idea. So my question to you is, do you have this team? Do you have this team in place? The research is there. Now, what are you going to do that you have this awareness? So what I want you to consider right now, this is just for you a moment, to think about the team players you can get into your intersection. Okay? Let me give you a few
I have a
examples.
question.
Yes.
What are the qualifiers that you have for who you're going to put on that?
Yeah, that's coming. That's coming.
Oh.
I promise. That's that you're right ahead of the story. Good. She asked a great question. What are the qualifiers to pick a healthy team? I'm going to get into that. So thank you for that question. Here are some team members that I would like you to consider you can get for free. YouTube has some great videos online for writers that can speak into your life, right?
Yep.
There are books, countless books, that I know Andy could recommend. Books that have helped him. We've talked about this in our writers.
Well, I'm thinking now, Robert McKee was the first guy who helped me understand what a story was.
Robert McKee on story.
And also the guy who, I'm so bad with names now, but The Writer's Journey.
Oh, yeah.
Was very useful. And there's a lot of other books that just to get you writing, because that's my particular challenge is just to get writing.
To get your seat on the chair so you can start the process. There are resources out there that you can get for free. So the issue is not lacking money to attend a seminar or go to the library. It's more resourcefulness. If you are passionate about this, you've got to be resourceful, right? You can get books at the library, check them out. You can take a master class. Someone I know you're taking a master class. Some people get writing coaches, script doctors. Some people join groups. So what I want you to do real quick is I want you to think about your intersection team real quick. And here's what I want you to rate, just to do an assessment for awareness. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at right now with the intersection team in your life, artistically speaking? Now, how you can really get a clear gauge of this is look at your calendar or your bank statement. Where are you spending your time and your treasure? Because that will really indicate where your passion is. Are you spending your time in that feedback loop? Are you investing your time in that feedback loop? Like a farmer who wants a harvest, could you imagine not investing in water? So, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you honestly at? This is just for you. 1 being, oh my God, I'm a lone wolf out there. Or, I've got an excellent team on all levels. So give yourself a score on 1 to 10. And what I want you to do is after you get this awareness, but I'd like everyone to do it. And you don't have to, if you don't like to write it down, but just get a number. What or who is something that you could add today, if you could, to make that 7 maybe go to an 8? To make that 5 maybe go to an 8? Even if you're at a 9, how do you get it to a 10? There's always something that we can close the gap on. So maybe it's you've always wanted to get in touch with a professional script doctor. There's a resource online that you can trade a script. There are writers that are professional writers. If you want, I can send you the information where it's called like Trade Tuesday, where I'll take your script, you take my script, and we give each other feedback. You can easily go online. Film Courage is one. You took master class. You can get so much wealth of information. So what is your score right now, and what is something or someone or people that you can implement right now? If you could brainstorm, and I want you to share this, because your sharing could also impact someone else. Because we're going to spend the majority of the time showing you how to receive feedback effectively so you can implement it right away. So this becomes going to be the more application. And how do you give feedback? So before we go there, is anyone willing to share where they're at and what they think they could do to get to the next level? Yeah.
I would say, and thank you for the intersection, I would say my intersection team is about a 5, but it's been raised. I would actually put it at a 7 right now because of being a member of this group.
Nice. See? Very
This
good.
group is definitely a way to raise your intersection, but definitely could improve that team. And I think every one of us wants to. So I think that that Trade Tuesday might be a great opportunity, and also just continue continue to grow through this group and through fabulous speakers like yourself.
Oh, no, thank you for that. That great insight about how you can actually do something today, right now, to be more efficient and effective with your work. We did this with Janie last night. She gave me a script. We were sat around her table and we had a feedback session. The day before, she wrote me an email about one of my feature scripts. It was invaluable. Stuff that I couldn't see on my own. From her corner of the intersection, she saw things that I didn't see. Right? But guess who did? My intersection. And just like that, I was able to shrink seasons into a session. Right? Decades into days. If someone else wanted to share, they had a...
I guess one of my questions is because we have the ability for people to share their scripts on our website, but my comment back from some people is that I don't want to read an entire script. So I don't understand, how do you get people, when anybody that wants to share a script with any of our members, our website director will post it on our website, and then you can invite the people that you want to go and look at that script. But the thing is that, you know, people are saying, I don't want to read an entire script. So that's one thing. And then I would say I'm about an 8, but I've been through probably 4 script doctors and a lot of money out.
Uh-huh.
And what you submit to a script doctor, the next script doctor says that that's not the correct thing. So how do you determine
That's a great question.
who's a good script doctor without wasting money?
Okay, did you hear that question? This goes back to the intersection team. You're having one person say yes, the other person's gone, huh? No. All right.
I
There are
just want
certain,
to say one other thing.
yeah.
I actually got more feedback from a veterinarian, and she had her kids read it, than I did from the script doctors that I had paid money to have done.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Did you?
Well, you know, good point. Bouncing on Janelle's comments, like hers is a specific genre.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it matters whether people are attuned to that genre, or do you think it should just be anybody, you know, get feedback and, you know, does it make sense?
These are great questions. Now I'm going to open this up to the intersection because I'm going to give you a point of view, right? And if someone else has another point of view from the intersection, please, by all means, share. My point of view from the coaches that I really admire and trust. Taste is subjective. Principles aren't. Okay? Your protagonist doesn't have a need or a want. That's a principle. I don't like bikers. Well, okay. Yeah, don't go with the biker choice. That's just, no, that's more taste. You've got to get feedback on the principle. In acting, there's a concept of, I have an objective. Is it landing? I don't know how sometimes I occur. Here's what I want. My objective is to make her feel like $1 million. No, it's not landing that way. The way you're occurring is that it seems a little smug. Oh, all right. I couldn't see that. But that's a principle of objective. It's not taste. So when something's a taste, you're going to get a variety of opinion. Principles don't change. They're like lighthouses. You know the Stephen Covey illustration, the lighthouse in the sea. You guys know that, right? You got the ship coming in, move. The lighthouse says, you move. The ship says, you move now. I'm a lighthouse. Oh, the ship moves. So the lighthouses are principles that guide us and steer us. Align with those, right? We want to align. We'll get into how to choose the team. But what is really important for you, the artist, that they've done actually studies. There's a book called Art and Fear. There's a study that was, have you guys read it? There's a study they do with the pottery, remember this? Where they take 2 groups. One group, they're going to get graded on the quantity. So if they make 50 pounds of pottery, you get an A. 40 pounds B, 30 pounds C, and so on and so on. The next group, you just make the best pot you can make, the best pottery you can make, right? 1, that's it, but it's got to be perfect. Well, the research showed, well, let me ask you, who do you think did the best quality work?
The people who were cranking out it.
They were cranking it out and they were getting the feedback loop. Here you go. Feedback. Oh, we can torque this. Here we go. As the other people were stressing out, no, it's got to be perfect. And research is showing that if you get yourself in trying to triumph, you actually get better results. And the way you get these results is getting a good feedback team. So why don't we go into this, because I want to get into more of the application. These are great. I just want to make sure we're applying for the rest of the workshop. Let's talk about how to get, who here is writing screenplays? Let me just see a show of hands. Okay, so the majority. Stage plays? Okay, some people are cross-pollinating. Books or blogs or magazine? Okay. Oh, so we got a lot of, good. We've got a lot of people, writers, that are doing multiple platforms. This is great. Okay, so this will apply. There are 3 kinds of people that receive feedback. And I'm going to make this very simple for just the understanding of it. There is the puppy, there is the prideful, and then there is the professional. Okay? The puppy tends to be extremely needy for validation and for you to like the script, because somehow their identity is tied to the script, and if you criticize the script, you're actually criticizing me, and they tend to get very personal, and they withdraw because they're puppies, they whine, and they tend to lay down and not participate.
And lick their wounds.
Yeah, lick their wounds.
How did you know so much about me?
Yeah, exactly. And this has really nothing to do with feedback. This has to do with, as Janie said, an earlier wound. This is not a stagecraft issue. Ultimately, this is a soulcraft issue. And as an artist, we're soulcraft and stagecraft. You got to do both. And what happens is, as the adage says, the pains of our childhood become the expectations of adult life, right? So you experience the pain here, I just got to expect it here, and all of a sudden, they said that my work was too long, he doesn't love me. Whatever, I'm not a therapist, so I don't know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there's an injury. Because in developmental stages where it's healthy, child falls, you give them feedback, encourage them, keep going. If they get damaged in that process, they will protest. If it's not heard, they will find survival skills. They're just leaking. I was the other day, I told someone, hey, your dialogue, it's a little clunky, whatever. Got it. It wasn't, did that say more about me or them? Yeah, I didn't cause that boom. I just touched something that goes way back. So I'm not here to tell you to work on, go getting a therapist. That's your own business. That's not what this class is about. But I'm just telling you, the puppies got wounds, and they've associated their work with their identity, and they can't hear it because they need fanfare, not feedback. Then you've got the prideful. And they probably were raised in a more shame-based environment. And they're a little arrogant, a little narcissistic. And they've got the corner of truth. The other day, we gave feedback to a person. And the response was, you do know I'm a published writer, don't you? Yeah. And their inner monologue is more to prove something, whatever their injury was, whatever their neediness is. But they're not there to improve. You've got to make the distinction. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to improve. That's what a feedback circle is like. You're not here to impress. You're here to express. You've got to make that distinction. The prideful, I'm here to prove, and I'm going to pose. And there's no room for growth in that arrogant stance, because I got to come as a student, because I'm hungry to grow and learn. I have a corner. You can see something I can't, but not to the narcissist, the pride. So the first two, the puppy and the proud, they've got an injury. and they're really needy. The professional, they've got needs, but there's a distinction. They're needless when it comes to feedback. You've got to be needless. You've got to be a good emotional matador. You know what a matador is, right? The matador gets gored when they get the cape too close to them. My mentor taught me this.
Yeah.
They get gored when they get the need. Like me. Praise me. Way too close to people who will never give it. They're bullies. They'll never give it, they don't know how. And if you try to need something, when they can't give it to you, guess what? You get gored. Oh, that hurt. Oh. Professionals are needless. I don't need your approval. I want your feedback. I'm a good matador. Here comes I'm needless. Oh, it's my dialogue? I can hear that because my need is not in the way. If your need is in the way, you're not going to be able to hear the feedback, even if they are kind of bullies. Got it? You're a professional. If you're needless, then I can take the risk and expose myself to the intersection to life outside myself. Do you understand? Yes.
I can give you a really good example of that.
Sure.
I lived in England for many years, and I went to play readings where they had, on audience feedback. When the guy found out I was a director, he said, "Can I come over to your house? And you can give me feedback on the script." So he did. It was great. He came over, had coffee, and he was absolutely professional in the way he went about gathering feedback. Because I said, "Well, that business really," he said, "I'm not interested in that. That. What I'm interested in is this." So when I had so he had worked through whatever portions of the play he needed to have fixed.
Yeah.
And he was interested in the parts that, from his perspective, were not working.
Excellent. Does everyone got that?
Yeah.
And it was amazing to look at his, and this is the other thing. He had a book in which which he opened up, in which there was his script pages, and then several pages of handwritten feedback. So he was literally, he was collecting things that would improve the building he was making.
You got it? He's collecting. He's hungry.
It was a very interesting experience.
That is, Brennan Borchard, he wrote a book called, the premise was Habits of Peak Performers. And he talks about a principle that the peak performers in any, whether you're a writer or welder, they have a tenacity, a want to expose themselves to feedback and become that kind of person who can make the changes. In other words, they are going to be a professional. They're going to meet the demands. So in that, they're not afraid to risk. That's another thing. They're needless. They're going to be a professional, but they risk. It takes a risk because you don't know how, when you just, with both feet, that's what a risk is. You leap with both feet. You don't know when you land if you're going to be better off, but that's why it's a risk. But pros can risk. And when you risk to get exposure, guess what could happen? No risk, no what? The best fruit is at the end of the tree, right? You may have a few thorns along the way, but you will get the best fruit. You got to risk so your art goes to that next level. We got a question in the back.
Comment, kind of a story. I edited a book for a lady named Brandy Kinnan who did a book. It's called By When, and it's turning your dreams into reality, moving from discussion to action. But she has a principle that she calls pink shag carpet. So let's say you give such great stories. Let me see if I can match that. So let's say that you want to change, you're in an office, you want to change the carpeting. And everyone in the office wants a pink shag carpet. Now, if one of the people in the office wants a pink shag carpet, willing to get them therapy. But if the rest of the people want pink shag carpet, you kind of have to surrender to that. And you kind of have to be needless and say, no, the carpet is fine. I don't want pink shag carpet. The carpet is just fine. So that's kind of the principle on feedback.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Anyone else? We're getting ready to transition now. We're actually going to get you on your feet. But I want you to know that the hunger inside of a professional, as opposed to the puppy, they need to be stroked and coddled. This person needs to be your, your deity, you got everything, you got the corner of truth. This person, I'm hungry to get wisdom. And what is wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge plus experience. It's know-how and do-how. It's just not just knowledge. You can know stuff. I could read a book, a blog, watch a video on working out. If I never go to the gym and apply that, I just have know-how stuck here, right? That's not wisdom. I could also have experience. I could have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours at a desk writing a screenplay or working out at a gym. Doesn't mean it's going to help me. It could be hurting my back, my knees, my neck. If my know-how isn't aligned with wisdom, meaning right knowledge with right practice. Wisdom. Knowledge plus experience. So I'm hungry for that knowledge, know-how, and to not just keep it lodged here, but to apply it. That is why in professionals, not only are they needless, and they're willing to take the risk and say, all right, I'm hungry for wisdom. I'm exposing myself to the intersection, my team, to help me grow and shrink these seasons into sessions. But they have this tenacity of recovering quickly. Pros, professionals, as opposed to the rookie, the little puppy, they recover quickly. NASA is notorious for shooting things to the moon, right? So to speak. They have an astronaut in a rocket who launches, and he's on a journey to the moon. Now, obviously, you know that rocket doesn't go straight like an arrow. It's going to face the elements of space that are constantly bombarding it. So the astronaut has someone called air traffic control. And they're guiding them. They get off, they're guiding them back on. They get off, they're guiding them back on. The rookie, the puppy, the prideful, they don't realize, they're not aware when they're off. And that 1 foot leads to 1 mile, which leads to 1,000 miles. Next thing you know, they're off in orbit. Not the pro. The pro recognizes when they're off and they get back on quickly. They recover quickly. I want you to, NASA, I reframed it for myself, is navigating assistance, shining awareness. That's how I use it. NASA for me is I need a navigating assistant to shine awareness. Because, you got it?
Yeah, that's very good.
Navigate assistance. I need your navigating assistance. I want to get here. I can't do it on my own. No astronaut could. So I've got someone say, up. And the immature don't recover very fast. The mature do. Yeah.
Traffic control, it's called course correction.
Course correction. Okay. Course correction.
It was summarized for me by a really great acting teacher I had named Dan Fossey. And he said, well, if 5 people say it's a horse, you better saddle up and ride. Because so many times we deny what we're hearing. And it's hard.
Yeah.
If you're deeply invested in some beautiful piece you've done or some great idea you've had, it's hard to give it up.
Did everyone hear that? Can you understand that it's not easy to give something up when, like, this is my baby. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Yes?
Oh, yeah.
So it's really important that as a pro, if you're a hobbyist, this probably isn't relevant. But if this is your passion and you want to really feed the lake and be efficient and effective, I want you to remember it's what oftentimes gets going on between these 2 ears, you're thinking. In cognitive psychology, there's a concept of the ABCs. A is a factor event, something happens. B is our interpretation of that factor event. And C is our emotional response. And if there's a D, there would be our behavior. A lot of people think you live in an A-D world. Someone gives you feedback, your script's too long, and they just respond like, you know what, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. It's got to go through B. You've got to have an interpretation on that. Your script is too long. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean?
It's too long.
Cut 20 pages.
Okay, but you sound like a pro. What would the puppy say? Your script is 20 pages too long.
You don't like me.
You don't like me? Okay, watch what happens. You got it, now you got it. You got feedback. Your script's too long here. They don't like me. They don't like me. Responses, I'm not gonna be part of this group. I'm withdrawing, I'm stonewalling. No, I'm going to another group. You don't understand me. What would the prideful say? All right, man, you gotta cut 20 pages. It's really, and you're going to, I don't know where your through line's going.
You don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what you're talking about. That's all I heard is, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. You have just criticized. Do you see what I'm saying? We live in an A, factor event, B, C world. Fact happens. You control 2/3 of this feedback model for the pro. Does everyone understand? It's not an AC world, people. They're just given a factor event. You've got to create a story. Speaking of storytelling, make it be a professional story. How do I use this to take my work to the next level? We have one more question. I want to get you guys on your feet with material.
You said you have a group that does this for you.
Yeah, I've developed the group.
Was that before your movie?
After the movie was the pain. And in terms of it didn't get the response, people that were outside of my bubble pointed things out that I didn't even see. You know, it's the learning, the J curve, the learning curve. There's unconscious incompetence. I don't know that I don't know. I'm not even aware of it. Then you almost, like you get woken up with the mega horn. Now I know that I don't know. Then I begin to work it. The gears are turning. It's conscious competence here. And then as Meisner talks about getting your 10,000 hours in, it becomes flow, second nature. But I didn't even know that I didn't know. I was unconscious incompetence. So, yes, let's...
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
So you had a film produced, you
Yeah.
had stars in it,
Yeah.
and yet you came to this window of perception that it could have been better.
Yes.
But where's the recognition of success?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I hope I probably didn't do that well. We had talented actors. We had people who we won awards. I had a great experience. The co-writer is an excellent writer and director. We had a wonderful experience. I thought in my bubble that it had to be a 5-star film, right? It was an A+ film. And when I got that feedback from professionals who were actually authentically caring for me and were wanting me to be better, they pointed out things I couldn't have seen. So it was actually a gift because it helped me next time. I did a feature film. I wrote it. I acted in it. I was in the film. I saw and felt and experienced people laugh and have a great time. And I also experienced, oh, I could do this better. Japanese have the term kanai, constant and never-ending improvement. I just cactus rolled. Okay, we've all done it. So what? What's my B? Hey, someone gave you feedback, your film. Oh, great, I can do the next film better.
I guess where I was going with this is that sometimes you hear of a one-hit wonder or someone who has an opportunity that it doesn't go as well as they had hoped, and then it's harder to get going again in the industry. Did you have any, was there a pushback on you? Or
This is a great question. You do a project, it doesn't go as well as you anticipated. All right, let's go the ABCs. A, factor event. You do a project, it doesn't go as well as anticipated. Now comes the B. What's a truth-telling, empowering, professional story we could tell from the intersection?
you dig deeper?
Ooh, we got a pro in the house. Does everyone understand? The puppy was like, no, I'm sorry. I needed you to love me. Right, Phil? It was a great film. What are you talking about? Why won't you? Okay, I don't need your money to make the film. I'll do it. I'll produce, act, direct, edit, cater, makeup, special effects, and anyone. I am the corner. You understand? So you've got it. The pro got it. Now, here's one thing. We're going to give you feedback on your scripts now. And I want you to practice